Welcome back. Welcome back. Rod Powell here to your number one source for information, inspiration, and education on the most just phenomenal career opportunity, in business today. That's a career in the insurance industry. Of course, once again, we're back with the podcast edition. Have a very, very, very special guest because we are going outside of the U.S. borders once again and really, exposing aspects of the business, not just inside of the country, but really around the world. And the colleague that I'm speaking with tonight, I'm very excited about. She is extremely active, on LinkedIn. So you may have already seen her in other areas. She is an insurance advisor, very, very just well-versed in what she does. And she has a cool moniker, which is the Insurance Mom. And she's going to share a little bit about that as well. Also about, what she does and the aspects of her business and her journey and story around the way, because she is multi-layered and multi-talented, has so many different things going on, and it's pretty phenomenal, especially considering the amount of success she's had in the business as well. So I want to welcome to the You Should Get a License podcast, Nicole, Chaitan, Kissoon. Nicole, how are you doing?
I'm good, Rod. Thanks. That's a big introduction.
Hey, look, thank you. I'm excited to have this conversation. I'll go back to, how I was originally introduced to you. You're very active on LinkedIn, which is, professional social media platform. Mm-hmm. And you had sent a message asking about the US market, and you sent a message that was a video. And that's the first time I'd ever seen that in LinkedIn. I was like blown away. I was like, yo, this is crazy. So I was like, man, this is somebody who I have to have a conversation with. And then, I follow your page and have seen, the activity and how you're always giving notes and nuggets and all these things of value, to consumers, and other professionals as well. So I want to just, kind of start off, on our platform, we like to expose, the different aspects of the business. And you have two unique pieces, in what you do professionally, but also how business works, in Trinidad where you are. So can you just share a little bit about, what you do, what your area of specialty is, and what you, help people with on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my specific wheelhouse really is personal risk management, because what I mainly do is personal insurance, life insurance, income protection. So that's illness, disability. We also do business insurance and general insurance as well for property. But what I really like and stick to is the personal insurance. So it's working with professionals, with families, with individual people, so that what I do for them, make sure that the plans that they have don't get derailed when the unexpected comes up.
Absolutely. So basically you're putting, plans in place, life insurance, final expense protection, just to make sure that, their family and the subsequent generations are going to be taken care of and not crippled by financial hardship that can be caused by death, really.
Yeah. What I do is ensuring progress from one generation to another. That's how you build your generational wealth.
That's it. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, aspect with generational wealth, because, that's a part of the business that people don't think about when they think about insurance. They think about insurance as, all right, I'm going to get this death benefit. And, I don't know if you hear this, but I know in the States, we hear sometimes, oh, well, I don't want to leave anybody else rich. My question is, well, one, why wouldn't you? But
wouldn't you have liked it if your great grand someone had left you rich? Of course you would have.
That's right. Absolutely. So, dealing with that, and you mentioned, other personal lines as well. So you also do not only the life insurance, final expense, but also some property and casualty if necessary.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. Perfect. And I know you have you have some other designations as well. So for any of the things that you do right now, one, can you just speak to the designations that you have, but also if there's any special designations that you need outside of just being licensed to do what you do on a day-to-day?
Well, actually things in Trinidad kind of just got a little more highly regulated than they used to be. So at the beginning of last year, the Insurance Act that governs the activities of insurance agents and brokers changed. So now we don't just have to be licensed by the government the way you guys have to have a license in whichever state that you're operating. But really, if we're going to call ourselves financial advisors, not insurance salesmen outright, then we need to have another professional designation to justify that. So that's why I choose not to call myself an advisor until I completed my FSCP designation from the American College.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. So, and it's I think it's a little bit similar here. So I just want to ask on something. So in Trinidad, one thing that I always had a question about, is it Trinidad and Tobago, or is it Trinidad Tobago? Like, how do we?
No, it's Trinidad and Tobago. 'Cause islands, right? Tobago is the smaller of the islands, so people have a bad habit of saying just Trinidad, but it's Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad and we want to make sure Tobago is included. You know.
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't have that bad habit, though, by the way.
Yeah. So there, the licensure, it encompasses the entire country. Do you have to have it for each area that you're in, or is it just one license?
What you really have to be able to do everything that I do is you have to have 2 licenses, because we're licensed separately for the first one is term long term. So that's really your life insurance, being able to sell critical illness insurance, annuities, all those investments and retirement products. That's your long-term insurance license. And then you have to have a separate license, your general license, for any kind of property or workman's comp, public liability, all of that.
Got you. Now we have the life and health here, right? That you would get through your state or whatever states you want to write business in. And then you have the property and casualty that you would get through those states as well. But we have to get the licensure for each state that we want to do business in. It sounds like if you get a license in Trinidad and Tobago, then you can operate in the entire area.
Trinidad and both islands. To be fair, though, I mean, the Trinidad is really where most of the business is. Tobago is a significantly smaller island. So, and most of us, like, even though we have Zoom and everything with the company I work for, thankfully, has gone online and digital with COVID. If you want to see a client, you still have to drive however long it's going to take you to get on a plane, which for me is about an hour and a half, and then jump on that plane to go talk to a client face to face in Tobago. So most people just operate within whichever island they live.
Shoot, people here, they talk about just driving, across town to go see a client. You're talking about getting on a plane to potentially go somewhere.
Yeah. So no, we really don't.
So thank goodness for Zoom, though. It definitely has opened up opportunities, for agents and for our clients as well. So I want to take a minute and go back, and then I want to go through the journey of your career. But I want to go all the way back to, let's say, a 8-9-year-old Nicole. What did you dream of being when you grew up?
Oh, I don't think I dreamt of being anything yet when I was that young. I think I got it in my head probably when I started high school, which for us here was probably around 12, 13 or so, that I didn't really want to work for someone else permanently. But strangely enough, I ended up doing it for a while. So,
hey, we all have our journey, but I think that it's interesting that, even as a teenager, you say, hey, I want to work independently, that entrepreneur, bug bit you kind of early.
Yeah, it was just realizing that I didn't want to have someone else telling me how and when to work and what to do. I wanted more control over what I did with my time and what I pursued. So I think that was it.
Now your background, prior to coming into the industry, you dealt in like economic policy. You also did some tutoring. So take me from, I guess, high school through college and how you actually found your way into the insurance industry.
Okay. Well, high school, I didn't work anywhere. High school, and it was a business track from the very beginning. I suck at numbers. I barely passed every statistics course I've ever taken in life.
You have a degree in economics, don't you? So.
Yeah. That's why if you look at the courses, you realize there was always a lean towards the development policy and type research, not modeling. So I was always interested in the development aspect of economics, and for the reason that I thought that's how you improve people's lives. Because the development policy is how you develop a country, and that means the standard of living rises. So that's always interested me. So I worked part-time. I did my first degree in Toronto, so I worked all through doing that. Your typical part-time student's jobs. The one that I think maybe helped me, and I didn't realize it until later on, was I had a job in a photo studio where I was essentially a telemarketer. I was booking appointments for people to come in.
Nice.
So that got me on the phone from the beginning, learning how to speak on the phone and to not take no for an answer immediately. So that was one skill that came up there. But when I finished that first degree, my undergraduate degree, I came home and I had gone on scholarship from the government, but that comes with strings here, at least.
Mhm.
So when I came back, it meant that I had to work for the government for a certain number of years in return for the scholarship funding.
Got you.
Right. So I worked in what is the Central Economic Planning Ministry. And I was supposedly doing exactly what I had trained to do, researching and writing and supporting economic policy. And it sucked. It really sucked. I sat behind a desk and I wrote words and slogans and stuff for development plans that got published in lovely glossy documents that sat on the shelf and gathered dust.
Oh, man.
Nobody. And I didn't interact with anybody or see anything outside of the office. So that was awful. But I stayed long enough because it's, I don't know if you guys have that impression in the States, but here, if you have a government job, a generation ago, the idea was, well, you're good, you're set, you have a government job. So, and the thing people say here is that when you have a government job, they can't fire you. Even if they want to, they can't. So I stayed for 7 years and did that. But the thing is, I had a lot going on while that was happening. While that was happening, I got married a year into that job. I finished my master's and I had 2 kids.
Wonderful.
And so it worked. But then after my second son was born, it came to a point where the commute to work for that was like an hour and a half each way.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the work didn't give anything in return for that commute or for the time away from my family. And I just had a breaking point where I resigned, and it was kind of dramatic, I think, when I look back at it now, how I did it. I just put in.
How'd you do it? Hold on. How'd you do it? Let's.
Well, so I had this issue where my immediate supervisor changed. And it changed from a woman who had a child later on in life and understood the work-life balance and supported it. Didn't really care what time I came in to work or if I had to work from home or anything. As long as the work was done, she was good.
Right.
And my immediate supervisor changed to someone who was like a butt-in chair for 8 hours a day type of person from 8 to 4. And there wasn't so much flexibility. And when I had to miss the time, even if they knew I was working from home, they still wanted me to apply for leave as if I hadn't worked. And so it came to a confrontation about that. And the supervisor said, well, you have to admit, I've been pretty lenient with you. And I just looked at them in the face and I said, honestly, no, you haven't. And I applied to HR that day for all the leave I had left. And I took it as emergency personal leave, which here cannot be refused. And halfway through that, I went and gave my resignation letter. I walked with a suitcase, packed up my desk and left and never went back.
Wow. It's interesting. It's interesting when you hear those kinds of stories because now in the environment that we live in, when everyone is working remote.
Exactly.
Right?
You see this coming. If you had seen this from ahead of time, I mean.
It's like in life, still function, like business is still happening, right? It makes you think about what's really necessary, as far as, running an organization and what's just, minutia, when it's all said and done. No, that's good for you. Good job in being courageous, enough to take that stand. So, okay. So you leave the gig. Mm-hmm. What happens next?
My kids were very small when I did that. My second son was 2, and I had my kids really close together. So I think they were both under 5 when that happened. So I was home for a while. My husband and I had been doing a certificate course in real estate sales, kind of just for the fun of it, to get us both out of the house to do something together, because his family he has a background in land development and property management. Nice. So we had been doing that. And so I completed that certificate with him maybe a few weeks after I resigned. So I kind of worked with him to build out the logistics of a real estate division for his company, but then got bored doing that because the pace of real estate here, if you don't live near the capital, is very slow. It's not at all what it would be like with you guys. So I got bored quickly. So I, again, probably ahead of time, I turned to looking for something online to do. So I ended up doing some economic tutoring. I would design and develop the tutoring material for a company that was doing private tutoring for kids in Ivy League schools like Columbia University and stuff for you guys.
Okay, so you were working with schools in the US, you were just working from Trinidad. Okay.
Yep. So then I had been doing that for a few months, I think. And then I saw on another online job market an ad for, it was phrased as a mortgage officer and mortgage and financial officer or something. I think that's what it was called. And I said, well, I just came out of real estate stuff, so maybe that would be kind of a parallel I could work.
Sounds like a bridge, right? Yeah.
But so when I go in, first thing was that it was in the building office for the major insurance company that I work for here. So I'm like, well, why would they be meeting there? Only to realize that, as you will know, people have a stigma to the title of insurance agent or insurance salesman. They don't want to say that's what they do out loud, and they have trouble trying to recruit a lot of times if they say, well, do you want to come and sell insurance? So that's why the job had been advertised as mortgage officer, because the company I work for also does mortgages. So I can also sell mortgages, and then I can insure the property that you're buying. I can do both, but they put that one up front. So when I went and sat down, they started talking about, well, how the compensation structure works and how much you can make, and how the work hours are what you make it. What works for you is what you choose to do. So I sat and I was thinking about it. I came back home. I talked it over with my husband. He's like, well, what do you want to do? Whatever you want to do, I'm going to support you. He's fabulous for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The decision to come in really came down to, again, it was a personal thing with one individual, the person who became my immediate supervisor, my unit manager. It was that I had a good rapport with her. And I asked her flat out, well, money aside, whatever people can make or not make doing this, why do you do it? Why do you enjoy it? Yeah. And she said, because what I do, I know it benefits people. So I told myself, well, this is something that I'm going to learn to do. And what you put in is what you get out in terms of how much you make for yourself at the end of the day. Then, well, what's the next thing that matters? If it's time that I'm going to spend away from my family, I need to know that it benefits another family, and that will be good enough.
That's right. That's right. And lo and behold, it benefits another family and it benefits your family, right? Because it does. Right. It takes care of both. So I want to touch on a couple of things, and that was what, 5 years ago, right?
Yep.
Nice. So one thing that you mentioned was when you were in college and you had a job when you were on the phones, you were doing some telemarketing work. Yep. And you said, hey, that gave me a skill of just being on the phones. That's something that in our business is very important. If you're, regardless of the segment that you're in, because if you're doing life insurance, you're calling the clients, you're calling the leads that you have. If you were in P&C, you got to call and do quotes and get those things done. If you're in employee benefits, you're calling on the businesses. How do you, I know you said that aided you, now in your business, but what is that, how important do you think that skill is to have for someone who is entering, this industry?
It's absolutely important, because when you start, you don't have clients existing already who you can call up as a friend and say, hey, can I talk to your brother? Can I talk to your business partner? You don't have existing clients giving your number to people to recommend you. When you start, you have to make your own connections. And this is COVID. You can't go pounding the pavements like they used to 20 years ago to build those connections and get those clients. You have to be on the phone. So you have to be confident.
Were you nervous? I mean, now at this stage, when you started in the insurance industry, did that come back up and say, oh yeah, I remember, I can do this? Did that come out like that, or were you nervous? Or
I was nervous, I think, when I started it, but it wasn't nervous about being on the phone. It wasn't nervous about calling up a stranger. The reason I was nervous was because it took a little time for me to get over the stigma, the stereotype that people have about having an insurance agent and a salesperson contact them. I had to get to the point where I can, if somebody asks me, oh, so you sell life insurance? And I can just say, yes, I do, and be proud of that and be comfortable with that. Then you're not nervous on the phone anymore.
That's an interesting point, with that stigma. We talked a little bit about some of that, before we, started recording even, but the perception in some cases is that, oh, well, this is a life insurance person, or they just want to take my money.
Yeah.
But the reality is, once you actually get into the business and you're having these conversations, you realize how important it is, how important what you do actually is, and that people want to know what's available to them, right? So
they want
how did you get past? Go ahead. How did you get past that, and then share some insight on that?
Well, I think it goes away that that sense of being kind of embarrassed, because you know that you're going to come up against that stigma that people have from the stereotype. So it kind of goes away gradually, just because you force it, because you fake it till you make it and keep making the calls, for one. Then as your sales start to come in, as your client portfolio starts to build, you start to realize, okay, I can do this. Then it goes away a little bit more. But there's a thing they say here for sure, probably where you guys are too, is that as an insurance agent, especially as a life insurance agent, you see and you feel the value of what you do when you pay your first death claim. And funnily enough, that really happened for me just 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So, and it was the first time I had a significant claim that had to go in, and it was the type of client who I had to have a relationship with, and knew both of them. It was the husband who died, and he died in an accident. It was completely unexpected and out of the blue. And when she called me, and I couldn't believe it, I was floored. This type of client. So I went to the funeral as well. It's not just a business transaction. And when I saw this widow walking behind the casket, head to toe black, I don't know where she found the strength in the moment, but it's a feeling I cannot describe, and it would not be understood by anyone who's not in the industry. The pride and the comfort of knowing that everyone else who was there at that funeral, they can give her words, they can take a meal over, but there's no one else there who can do for her what I will do for her.
That's right. You kind of know that the decisions that you helped her make, and her husband make, at least, can't bring him back, but it at least made the financial hardship lessen. You can see everything that they're doing, that you're a part of that you really contributed to that. That is, that's really powerful, to share and to think about, the other part about that you mentioned is the fact that, you develop a relationship with clients. So as you're, not only are you adding this value to them from a standpoint of the product, with the policy, but you're also getting to meet and engage these people and form real bonds. You become a part of their lives. So what is that really like? What is that meant to you? What is that aspect of the business meant to you?
It makes what I do more than work. I'm not just filling out paperwork. I'm not just going into an office on business wear and clocking hours. Everything that I do, everything that's on my to-do list for the day has a name attached to it, and a name with a relationship there, where I know I'm doing, this is a critical illness insurance policy for this client, and it matters to them that it gets sorted out properly because her mom died of cancer before she was 50. So this is important for her. Or there's an endowment policy, and I need to get it sorted out and back on the books because his kid is going to be ready for school in 10 years. And I know him. He does coding with the same people my kids do coding with. There's a connection to every single task on your to-do list.
Yeah. I think that's one of the more underrated, parts of this business is the relationships, because even with companies, right? Like when they're recruiting, a lot of times they show the numbers, right? If you make this amount of calls, you're going to, close. If you make this amount of calls, you'll set this amount of appointments. And if you set this amount of appointments, you'll close this amount of business.
Numbers game.
Right. Right. But, I think what's missed a lot of times, are the relationships that can be established, that last for years. Like you said, you're working with people who, you're putting things in place for their children, right? So you're meeting them when their children are school age, your kids' age. By the time they're going to college, you're like, wow, I've known you guys for 10 years, 15 years, and you're a part of that experience. So that's a very strong point that you make as well. Speaking of like, just children and family, you have, the moniker, the insurance mom. How did that come about?
Yeah, well, it's not the insurance mom really on everything.
It's just insurance mom?
It's not the insurance mom. It's just, it came about, even my logo, it just has #insurance mom.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay.
So the story behind it is that hashtag, that this, when I came into insurance, my unit was very small. It was just 2 other agents who had been there about a year, my unit manager and me. And both the others in the unit, they had kind of self-branded. So we work for an overarching company, but us as individuals, we do kind of individual branding that sets us apart from other insurance agents in the country and the company. So they each had their own branding done and encouraged me, well, think of what you want to do for yourself. And for the love of me, I could not come up with anything that didn't sound corny and ridiculous to me, right? So I decided, well, you know what? I'm just going to post anyway. I'm going to use Instagram, and I'm going to start putting out some information, and it'll come eventually. We'll leave it. So I started to do that. And one day I went to post, I think it was also pictures of myself with my kids. I think I had taken them with me to a branch meeting that day, and we went out for waffles after. So I'm posting, and I go to add hashtags, and of course you get suggested hashtags. Insurance mom was a suggested hashtag. So I look at it and I go, well, that works.
Right.
I'm both things, and that's what I was posting. So I started attaching that then just to everything that I posted, until then one day I'm going through the mall. I was going to Starbucks in the mall, and another insurance advisor from another company who knows me and knew me outside of work as well sees me and yells across the atrium, "Insurance mom!" My head flips, and I'm like, all right. So after that, I just said, well, okay, I'll go with it.
Nice. No. It definitely resonates. It's right on point. And, it is a cool hashtag as well. So we make sure insurance mom, not take the D off, just insurance mom.
Just insurance mom.
Awesome. And you spoke about, your family, like when you were getting started, your husband was very supportive. You had 2 small children, at the time. This is a 2-part question, but the first part is, how important was it and how much did it mean to have, your spouse supporting you in this business, and how important do you feel that is for someone who's starting that does have a husband or a wife?
It's huge. It's huge, and it's for so many things. Okay, well, like for me, because we still have very much stereotype gender roles here. So still, most people will expect with household stuff and stuff is the wife's and woman's duty and all of that. But my husband has never been that way with me. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing is, it's very important that you have a spouse that's supportive of you, because when you just start in this business, like you asked about being on the phone and that being important, when you just start selling insurance, you have to put in the work. You have to put in the grind. There is no 2 ways about it. There's no other way to do it. So it meant for me literally pounding the pavement, walking up a high street, going across the street, back and forth, one business to another to introduce myself and ask for business, doing seminars to build a client portfolio. So it's going to take some hours, and you need to have the support at home to do that. And he was great. Like I never had to worry or say, okay, listen, this client can only see me when they finish work. And in the beginning, those first couple of years, it was completely normal for me to be coming home 8-9 o'clock at night, right? And I never had to worry that my kids were taken care of or not taken care of. If I wasn't there, their dad was there, and they're okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then, then the other part of it that people don't talk about is that you need somebody who's going to be able to be there to support you to mentally keep you
Yes.
going. Because I'm sure you've probably seen it, this meme, the life of an entrepreneur, where it zigzags. Oh, I'm making it, then it goes down. What am I doing?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So that one,
Yeah.
being an insurance agent is exactly the same thing.
Yes.
Exactly the same thing. And so having my husband there, he believes in me more than I believe in me sometimes.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think that's very, very important as well. My wife, she supports me greatly in the business as well. And I know that everyone doesn't always have that same experience. What would be some words that you would share to, let's say someone wants to get into this business and their spouse has some reservations. Maybe it's about the hours, maybe it's about commissions, and those kind of fears. What would you share with that spouse to maybe help them understand the opportunity that's available, for that person?
Be patient with them and be supportive, because this business, I think what you put in is what you will get out.
Right.
Eventually it will happen. You have to have the faith that it will happen, because it's if you start a business, brick and mortars, you start a restaurant, it could fail. You start any other type of business, it could fail. But in this business, you operate as self-employed, but you don't have to put in a dime. Your time is what you have to put in, right? And if you give your spouse the support going into this, give them your time, do what they are not able to do, because when they need to work, you give them that sacrifice of time and it will pay off.
That's it. So you mentioned the time, and I think that's spot on, because it does take that patience. It does take, the understanding. And I'm glad that you mentioned, just that coaching that the spouse has to give. Hey, no, you can do this. You got this, during those ebbs and flows. At what point did you know, and your husband too, right? Like at what point did both of you guys know, oh yeah, this was a good decision, right? Right.
I think it would be when I won Rookie. So Rookie, I don't know if you guys have the same type of awards. When you come into the insurance business here, you're named Rookie if you're the top producing new agent in your company.
Yes, different organizations.
Right. Exactly. So I started in May, so I had 8 months, right? You can do it within your first 18 months, but because of when I started, I would only have one shot at it. So it was that first 8 months. And I didn't take it on. I wasn't too bothered about trying to win it until I started in May. And I think I decided that I wanted it around mid-September or something, because we're sitting there in branch meeting and my branch manager is going through everyone's figures for the year to date, and realizing that I was like neck and neck with the closest competitor that was in the company for Rookie. And Rookie for us it's kind of the award that people say matters the most, because you can only do it once.
Right.
And it has happened afterwards with me, with other competitions and other awards in the business, that a flip kind of just switches when I decide that I want something. So when I saw those figures, I decided that I wanted Rookie. And it was like tunnel vision from that point on. And my husband was right there with me.
Like, that's it. I got to get it.
Yeah, right there with me to do it. So when he went shopping with me for the suits and the dress and the stuff, because back then we had our lovely annual awards everyone looks forward to. It was like dress up gala event kind of thing. So when he dressed with me and went to that, and then people coming up to him when we're there and introducing themselves and asking him which branch he's from, he goes, no, I'm not the agent. She's the agent. I'm her husband. So we knew that's when I knew for sure he's right there alongside me.
Nice. So you're like, hey, I'm Rookie of the Year now. Well, first you like, look, I'm gonna get this. So you got that competitive spirit as well. All right. Where'd that come from? Is it now hold on. Before you answer that question, you're a twin.
Yeah.
And
identical twin.
You're identical twin. Your sister's a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Were you guys competitive growing up?
Yes.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Yes, but somehow we weren't after the same thing. It's just that I always have this sense that, okay, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So if she can come, she can be at the top of her class. And we actually get certificates in secondary school, at least when I was in school, that to say that your grades for the term were the best in the class. So I wanted that certificate every end of every term. If she got it and I didn't get it, it would bug me. We were in different classes. So yeah, it's always been that way.
So that competitive spirit was really just kind of embedded from a young age, just growing up.
Yeah.
You guys have other siblings as well? It's
just the two of us.
So it's just the two of you kind of back and forth, growing up. So you caught that, you caught that bug in that first year. You said, hey, I'm going to get this rookie of the year. I'm going to do this thing. So after you hit the rookie of the year, what do you feel like was the next milestone for you?
I always wanted to cross the stage at annual awards. If I did, like, if you don't make quota or I didn't do it, that would bug me. So it became kind of a quarter by quarter milestone, because the company used to do a quarter by quarter compensation thing where they called it Phoenix. So when you hit the target for that quarter, company throws party, you dress up, you go, usually has some kind of fun theme and something.
Yes.
So nice. I did that for the year I joined and the year after. But then in 2019, they changed it. They made it into an annual award, but to qualify for it, you had to do it within the first 9 months. So to qualify, you had to do your annual production within the first 9 months.
Man.
Yeah.
That's tough.
No, this was the prize. The prize was an all expense paid trip to Cancun.
Oh no, okay.
Right. I just decided, okay, I hadn't traveled really. I'd left Trinidad for school, come back. I had traveled I think maybe once or twice when I was working with the ministry. But other than that, I hadn't really traveled. And we decided, and we everyone my age, what we'll do, we're gonna go Google what can you do in Cancun. You can do a lot in Cancun.
A lot in Cancun, yes.
You can do a lot of Cancun, and so it's all expense paid. So I decided again, I wanted it. And luckily enough, pretty much everyone else in my unit decided then that they wanted it too. And my unit had grown by this point. It was it ended up being 10 of us, I think, who pushed really hard because we wanted this. And we went with our own itinerary. We didn't care for the company's things. We didn't.
So y'all set your own plan.
We did our own thing. People, I remember somebody came up to us one evening when we were coming back. We got back to the resort. It was like, why are you guys so antisocial? Us as a unit, we didn't really hang out with the rest of the branch because we were running on our own schedule. Our times were booked. We went shopping. We went to see the pyramids. We went to the adventure parks. We did the clubbing. We did everything, and this was in 4 days.
Nice.
When we came back, my branch manager asked, "How was it?" I'm like, "It was amazing, but I don't think I could have survived another 4 days." The way you guys were going, I don't think you could have either. So.
That was it. Isn't that one like the other like really cool things about this industry? How you're going to go on some trips. You're going to take some trips.
You are, because every company has trips. They have conventions. There's MDRT every year. People go. I don't think there is any other profession where doing well can give you so much experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now, at this stage in the business, 5 years, you've been rolling. I mean, you did the rookie of the year, you've been on the trips, you have a nice, book of business clientele. At this stage, what keeps you motivated? Like what keeps you moving forward?
From the beginning of this year, what it has been is finding the type of clients that I want to be working with. People have a mindset that matches mine. because then when I sit and I work with those type of people, I don't feel like I have to break down information to make it just something that they can take in. When I'm working with someone who is a professional, when I'm working with someone who actually has a financial goal and who wants to learn how to put a plan in place to get them from renting an apartment right now, commuting half an hour to work, to 5 years from now, I want to be in my own mortgage. I want to have this side hustle turned into a business, knowing that they're going to take my advice on board and they're going to ask questions and they're going to work the plan and trust the process to get from point A to B. That matters to me now.
Yeah, no, very important. So now I know here in the US, the conversation about, well, entrepreneurship is a big conversation, but the conversation about financial literacy is very important. Generational wealth, which you mentioned early on, in our conversation. Do you find that the individuals that you're speaking with now have that mindset of wanting to be more financially literate, wanting their policies to kind of serve that purpose? And do you feel that the industry overall is leaning in that direction where people want the education more so?
I don't think it's an industry-wide movement that you're seeing yet, but I think it's something that advisors are learning. In order to be successful, they have to be the ones to lead.
Yeah,
they have to be the ones to lead that discussion. So advisors are going to have learned quickly. Like over the last 2 years, we had lockdowns that lasted longer and have been stricter, I think, than you guys have experienced. So that was hard on very many advisors' portfolios. I mean, as accommodating as an insurance company would try to be, you can't, if you're a chef, you can't cook for free. Inevitably, you have to make some money. So an insurance company can't extend coverage for free, inevitably. So when people passed the point where of leniency with the company and policy started to lapse because people weren't working and businesses were closed, that was hard on a lot of people.
Yes.
But what advisors have found is you're going to have a harder time with clients like that if your business has been transactional. If you've just been talking to them about a life insurance policy and you left them with the life insurance policy and that was it. Yeah. But portfolio is going to stand up better over time when you didn't just have a discussion about life insurance. You talked about what the goals are for the family. You talked about why they need the type of coverage they need and why they need how much, and they understand.
Because then it becomes a priority.
It does. Because when someone understands how insurance works and when they understand why they need it, what they should have, they take responsibility for it themselves.
That's right.
It becomes something that they need to have in place, not an expense that they have to pay.
Absolutely. No, that's great, advice, and just great guidance, for the clients and for anyone who's listening that, maybe they are coming from a background where, they've been in sales. Let's say they've been in sales before, but they have been transactional, where they, have sold a certain product or sold a widget. And this business is very different from that, because it is managing that relationship and you're managing it over time as well. You mentioned the pandemic. Do you feel as though, and please, speak to the market, to your market of Trinidad, do you feel that the market is still being affected by that? If so, in what way? And are you starting to see people beginning to kind of get used to the new world that we're doing business in?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the second way, is that people are adjusted by now to knowing that the type of jobs that you thought were a client would have, that you would count as a reliable client, isn't the same anymore. But I think we've adjusted at this point to the way we work, definitely. So everything is across Zoom as it needs to be. All our paperwork, as everything has gone digital, our applications as well. So it's not that the pandemic is affecting the industry and people's success or the way they work negatively anymore. That adjustment period we've come through that. I think the harder thing has been to learn how you adjust and your balance to do this work now through the pandemic. Because me working now, I mean, I can speak for what it is for myself, for colleagues, people who have families and you're working from home. As an insurance person, building relationships takes time. And if I'm working here and my kids are next door and they're in Zoom and they need something, they're going to come knock on my door. And you have to learn you want to be able to have that separation to say you're blocking time, but it doesn't work like that. So we've come through it, understanding that it's not about balancing two things. It's about simply paying attention to what needs to be the priority in this moment.
Yes.
As you go along. So that's the adjustment that it's taken. It's not so much an adjustment about how you find clients and how you go to meet clients or anything like that. It's adjusting how you manage your life with your work, with this type of work.
Yeah. Sometimes, and I think with this environment, especially with, having children, like, my children, they're in virtual school right now, and preparing to make a transition back into an in-person environment. But sometimes I think, once again, just in humanizing, who we are, even as professionals, like I look at my camera to see if like one of my sons is going to walk through the hallway or something, because, you just never know. So, I think that people have become more compassionate, in doing business. And sometimes it helps you to create even greater connections as well, because, you're at work and, your kids might pop around or make some noise in the background. Like how old are your sons?
They're 9 and 7. 9
and 7, right? So they might make some noise in the background or yell out or something, and my young ones might do the same thing. So, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm going through the same, it's like the other person on the other line, they're going through the exact same thing, So it kind of even helps strengthen that bond a little bit more. So a couple more questions, before I finish up here. I don't want to monopolize all your time, but so how would you say that your life is different now after getting licensed, getting into this industry versus before?
It is, first and foremost, more than anything else, far more intentional. Mm-hmm. Because this job demands that you use your time well. It demands that you use your energy well. So I've learned to become this job put me through enough that in the app, those first maybe 2 years, until they say it in passing that you have to grow a thick skin, but that's not enough. If that's all you do, then you haven't grown through the job.
Yeah,
I think that my sister is one of the people who tells me that I'm much more emotionally aware. So I know if I'm feeling off, I've reached a point where I can stop and say, why am I feeling like this? Is it because that client didn't call me back? Okay, that's not within my control. What can I do about it? And I'm far more aware and intentional about how I work, when I work, how and what I spend my time on. Because your time is your asset. You don't have to put anything else into this work. You don't have to invest capital. You don't have to go and buy a building. You don't have to put anything else into it the way you have to do with another startup or going off on your own as an entrepreneur in any other way. What you have to invest is your time and your energy. So I've learned to be far more focused with that.
So being focused, being more intentional. It sounds like, more emotionally intelligent, as well, and thicker skin. So, the next question I was going to ask is, how do you feel like having a license has changed you as a person? But it sounds like, it's giving you some of those additional attributes in your character. Is that a fair assessment, or?
Very much so. I think there were days when I started this job, when it didn't even take a no. I didn't even have to be rejected. It just had to be the idea of going to meet a prospect who I felt intimidated by, just because in my head I had built them up into this big deal of a possible client. There were times where I've been curled up in a ball, like in fetal position, I kid you not, dreading to go to a meeting. And to grow past that, to tell myself, I'm gonna message them. They say no, fine. A week has passed and they haven't answered me. I'm just gonna send you a message and be like, well, I need to know whether this is a priority for you right now or not, and leave it there. You know, having grown that much for this, it wouldn't have happened if I had been in any other job.
So many things just like happening in our head, right? When we think about, meeting with people, how we think it's going to go, and then it ends up being something completely different.
Yeah.
So what is something that being licensed, something that having a license has allowed you to do that you weren't able to do before, like spending, like from a time standpoint, finance standpoint, anything?
It's allowed me to, two things really, I think. One, it's allowed me to be with my kids a whole lot more. I mean, and that matters. There isn't anything else that matters more than that. I was able to make a decision to say that my kids are old enough now, and so they're starting extracurriculars and swimming and these kinds of things. And for me to decide that I'm going to be the one that's going to take them. And for the hour that they're in the pool, I'm going to sit and I'm going to watch them. I'm not going to be on my phone. I don't have to be at work. I don't have to ask permission to go to see them. I can go and sit and watch my kids swim.
Yes.
Yeah, like I would have had to ask permission, like I said, if I was working for someone else in another job. That's not something I'd be able to do. Yeah, and then this second thing I think that I've gotten, because I'm a licensed insurance advisor, is a clear sense of who I am. Like I've had the impression. So today, my sister suggested we go, asked me to go out and do something with her this week, and it crossed my mind like insurance firm doesn't do that. So it's a clear sense of who I am and who I'm not. Yes. If you're just punching in and out of 9 to 5, you won't find that so easily either.
I agree. I mean, I think having that true sense of purpose and having all things align. They say, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. And being able to do something that really does mesh well with your goals and your objectives for who you are and the impact that you want to make in the world is very, very important. So, Nicole, at this point in your career, you've experienced success, you have the time freedom, you've grown as a person, you're starting to even expand your client base, into different levels. What's the dream now? Like what is the goal? What's the end goal for Nicole Chaitan Kissoon, for Insurance Mom?
Well, there are two paths, and I don't think I've completely decided where I want to go with it. There's the management path, there's that one. I've not gone anywhere near it yet, just because I think being responsible for my mental framework and managing my portfolio is enough for me. I don't want to be responsible for someone else's yet. But the other path is incorporating as an agent. So that for us here is you're registering a company and you're putting your license, instead of as an individual license, you're licensed as a business. Your compensation structure changes and you manage more. So there's more room for growth. Then that can go on and into a brokerage where I could be writing business, not just for one company, but for multiple. So that's one. It could go either way, but the end goal, whichever path I decide to take, the end goal is freedom. The end goal is enough passive income coming from an existing portfolio of clients where I don't have to go look out for new clients if I don't want to, or at least if I don't want to today. I think that's everybody's end goal these days, now that, like, as you said, people are leaning towards financial literacy is actually becoming a thing, whether or not it's taught in schools. So the end goal is that.
Not taught in schools here. I don't know if it's taught in schools there. It's not taught in schools.
Of course it's not, but my kids are learning. Mind you, my kids are learning. Right. My 9-year-old knows how life insurance works. So we're not playing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So, for someone else who is listening to this interview, and you've dropped a ton of just jewels and gems and just insightfulness that I think is going to add a ton of value to whomever, hears this conversation, this interview. But for someone who is maybe considering an opportunity, maybe they've met with a company, maybe they saw an advertisement, maybe they're, looking at, your posts on LinkedIn and wondering if, maybe I don't know, this could be interesting. What advice but they're on the fence about whether they want to get into this industry or not. What kind of advice or just last few words would you give to them?
When people ask that, I'm always afraid that I don't want to say anything that's going to scare them off the fence in the other direction, because I don't ever want to sugarcoat it and make anyone think that, coming into this, you're going to be rich, you're going to make so much money. It's anything. But then I don't want to scare them off. I think would be the most important thing you could tell somebody coming into this. It's probably what one of my now clients told me when I just started. When we just start, we have to fill out these. We have to get 50 people to do a questionnaire for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's a way of getting clients getting names for referrals. And one of the last questions that they fill out on the questionnaire for us is, as a new agent, what would be some advice that you would give to me? And this client wrote, persistence is key. Mm. And that applies through everything, through the ups and the downs, through the crunch time, through the lulls, everything in this business. Persistence is key. Persistence is key. It might even be just taking the test. Mm-hmm. Persistence is key. You just keep going. Yeah, no, persistence is key. No, I appreciate, the time today. And, I think what you're doing is outstanding. If people want to know more about Insurance Mom, if they want to get in contact with you, if we have some folks in Trinidad and Tobago, they're hearing the interview and they're like, hey, she sounds like somebody I want to do some business with. How do they get in contact with you? Well, they can get me through everything social media. So LinkedIn or Instagram. LinkedIn is Nicole Kissoon, Insurance Mom. Instagram is Nicole Kissoon _Insurance Mom. All right. And we'll have all of that on the video portion of the interview and in the description, of the podcast on wherever you're listening, to this conversation right now. Nicole, thank you very much once again. And for those who are listening, persistence is key. And maybe you heard something tonight that makes you think, I'm going to be persistent and get a license. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Thank you.